Can you claim your networking expenses for tax purposes? How do we go about doing this? Hi, I'm Kimberly Shapcotts, qualified chartered accountant, property investor and entrepreneur. Let's sit down and have a chat. If you're anything like me, you might attend some networking events, and I tend to attend a couple each month for various reasons. Some of it may be to bring in new work for the accountancy practice, but others it's just really to meet other landlords and see what they're going through and what they're doing, because we all have our different stories and different things happening with our property businesses, and it's nice to speak to someone who gets it. So you may be getting new knowledge, you may be meeting new people, you may be building your network of contacts. There are many reasons why we attend networking events, but are they allowable for business purposes? Well, this comes back to that good old phrase, wholly, necessarily and exclusively for business purposes. And for a lot of them, I'm hoping that we can probably answer yes to most of those questions. And if that's the case, then wholeheartedly I would say definitely we are allowable for tax purposes. Now, assuming we can tick the box to say yes, it's determined as that it's necessary for our business, it's necessary for the business's purposes, it's exclusively for business purposes, which it may be for specifically a training type thing that they're going to be talking about a topic that is very useful to you to understand as that business employee or owner. So now the question is, well, what can I actually claim for? Now, for a lot of networking events, there is something that is generally an attendance cost, so some sort of cost for going to the event. And assuming it's allowable for tax purposes, the whole cost of the attendance would be allowable. Now, I would argue that this is for whether it be a breakfast event, a lunch event, a dinner event, or just an event at a specific time. There are some tax cases that would support this on the basis that if you're going for a breakfast event, then breakfast is part of the event, so you need to pay for the whole thing and the attendance is allowable from that point of view. If an event has an optional element, which may be you can come to the event for £10 and if you want breakfast it's £15, then there is some question marks over whether the extra £5 is allowable or not. But it kind of depends on how the event functions. Now, for a lot of events that I've seen, most of the costs are all inclusive. So if you're going to a breakfast networking event, it's a breakfast networking event with the intention that you're going to have breakfast while you're networking and building your relationships with other attendees. So that would signify that it's allowable. If the costs are separated out, you may just need to have a look at whether or not the full amount is allowable or not. One thing to know is generally the networking costs would need to be allowable when it's a formally arranged event, and it doesn't take into account informal gatherings. So informal gatherings where you just meet a few people at a pub, they're probably less allowable for tax purposes. Whereas if you're going to a monthly networking group where they've got presenters and speakers and things like that, that is going to be definitely allowable as there's a formal element to it. As you can see, as with all areas of tax, there are a few grey areas here. So I definitely suggest just having a chat with your accountant to just see how it fits together, to see whether the events you're attending are going to be fully allowable, part allowable, or potentially not allowable at all. But hopefully most of the time with what you're doing, you would be able to make them allowable events, which therefore means you'll be able to put them against your profits to reduce your tax bill. Now, some other expenses to just consider which are related to networking is your travel costs, because unless you can walk around the corner to the event, which, touch wood, I have been able to do at least on one occasion, you're going to have to travel, whether it be by bus, by car, by train. There is going to be some sort of added cost to it. So the cost to getting to that event, again, would be an allowable expense. So if you're having to travel 5 miles there, 5 miles back, those 5 miles, 10 miles to get there and back, you'd be able to claim at the mileage allowances. Check out the video on mileage to see how that all fits together. A final element to this is therefore what records do you actually need to keep? Well, you need to keep any emails or correspondence which has the receipt from the networking event. If you're travelling by bus or train, keep those tickets with your records to show the expense you have incurred. For mileage, you'll need to keep the receipts of some fuel so that we've got the evidence to show that you have been putting fuel into your car to claim that mileage. You're likely maybe to pay for this out of personal cards. That's not a problem. If it's in a business, you need to be putting those receipts, those expenses on an expense claim form, and check out the video on expense claim forms on how you go about putting that expense claim form together. If it's just for your property business, then just keep hold of all those receipts so that you can put them down to see what can be claimed against your tax return. In terms of how the tax works, it's very simple. As with most things, you will put the expenses against your income and help reduce your profits for tax purposes, which will therefore reduce the tax that you end up paying on your business. One other thing to just mention is VAT, which for a lot of property businesses is completely irrelevant. However, if you are in a serviced accommodation business, you may be VAT registered. And if you are VAT registered, any VAT you pay on any of the different elements, whether it be the networking attendance or any travel costs, you will be able to claim the VAT back, which helps just make the cost of the actual trip that little bit cheaper. You'll still get the corporation tax or the income tax relief on the rest of the amount, but you will be able to claim that VAT back on your VAT return. In summary, you're more likely than not going to be able to claim your networking costs and the costs of getting yourself to that event. Make sure you keep hold of all your receipts and all your evidence, and then that will help reduce your tax liability when your tax returns are done. Hopefully today you've discovered what you can and cannot be claiming when it comes to networking. If you have any questions, then please do leave a comment. Please like the video and do subscribe to the channel, and let's make tax less taxing.